I am John Beckmann. I am running for U.S. Senate in Alabama, GOP primary, vote March 3rd. Today, so I was thinking about this yesterday. I was thinking, the question is, how do you refocus government on liberty? So right now, when you interact with the government, it's just controlling you. It's just basically being an extra parent. We don't need an extra parent. So the question is, how do you actually mechanistically refocus government on liberty? We're going to talk about that today. But first, did you guys see the article on the Area 51 people? So there's a Facebook organization group that has got like 51,000 people, or it's either like 50,000, it's like 500,000 people to like sign up to be like, okay, we're going to storm Area 51 to find out about the aliens on this particular day. And the U.S. Army responded, and they're like, if you storm Area 51, we will shoot you down. So, it's a crazy story. It's kind of funny. I've always wanted to go to Nevada. They have the towns that are, not because I'm a alien, like, again, not because like I'm an alien conspiracy theorist, but those towns around there have like whole like city fairs dedicated to like Area 51 where they have alien merchandise. So I've always wanted to go there. Also, these Q people keep contacting me, and they're like, dude, you need to check out Q. You need to check out Q. And I'm like, what the hell is Q? What are you talking about? What's this Q shit? And they're like, oh my God, there's like this Q organization, which is some kind of like back channel communication where Donald Trump uses this Q organization to talk to people. And it's like, I'm like, I watch these videos on this Q that they're telling me to watch these videos, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is so in the Q movie that they made me watch, they're proposing that there's like this cabal of people who control all the world, and in the cabal is Jack Dorsey, who's the leader of Twitter, who's the CEO of Twitter and understands all the programming of Twitter. And so I responded to this person, and I was like, respectfully, I was like, if there's like this cabal of people, and okay, answer this question then. So this is interesting, because this is what I'm trying to figure out. If there's like this cabal of people, and Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, is like in this cabal, why are all the Q people using Twitter to communicate? Like, then the cabal is like seeing all your communications and like all your membership roster. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Answer that question. Why would you do that? If you're a Q person. I mean, that was my first reaction, is like, if this is true, because that would be too obvious. What would be too obvious? Like, my question is, why would Q people use Twitter if the owner of Twitter, who has access to all of your communications, is part of the cabal? You would use a different social media. You would not give but all these Q people are on Twitter, so it doesn't make any sense. It's like, if he was part of the cabal, you would not be on Twitter. So like, yeah, they're like, watch these videos, and I'm like watching them, and I'm like, this is just crazy shit. Like, there's, anyway, okay. So, but I do want to talk about how do you actually mechanistically refocus government on liberty? They use pigeon mail. The carrier pigeons are extinct. Anyway, okay. So how do you refocus government on liberty? What's the best definition I heard of liberty? I never understood liberty when I was a kid, but then somebody explained it to me. Jason Lewis. I used to listen to Jason Lewis's talk show, and then he's from Minnesota, and then he became a state representative, or not state, U.S. congressman. So Jason Lewis's explanation to me, which finally made it click in my mind what liberty was. He basically says, so, and you make a dichotomous system. So you talk about basically liberty in China and liberty in America. Liberty in America means that you have the freedom to do whatever you want, unless there's a law against something, then you can't do that. Now the opposite of liberty is like what they have in China, where in China you're not allowed to do anything unless the government tells you can. So that's like the opposite. So in China, you can't do anything unless the government tells you should do this. But here in America, we can do anything we want unless there's a law against it. So that's liberty. That's the best way that I've ever heard liberty described to me. Okay, so my question is, how do you actually reprogram the U.S. government to have its focus on liberty? That's what the original founders, the intention was they wanted the government to be basically limited so that it would enhance the liberty of all the people. So how do you actually do that? Because right now we have this state, we have this system, this federal system that's basically another parent. And every single time you interact with the government, it's a terrible experience. You have to go to the DMV. You got to get your license. You have to go register to vote. You got to go, like every time you interact with the government, you got to pay your taxes. It's just a terrible experience, and they're just limiting your freedom. So how do you actually mechanistically refocus the government on liberty? So I'm trying to think about this as like a scientist. Like, what would you mechanistically do? So the first thing you would have to do is you have to quantify. Right. Yeah, you definitely have. That's why we're having the culture wars. So he's saying you get the culture to support individual freedom first. That's incredibly true, because in America, you get the government that you vote for. So, right. So if your culture and your people don't support liberty, then you're not going to get that. So that is the first battle. But I'm talking about, like, let's say we win. So that first battle then is you vote for people who think like you, who believe in liberty, like me. But then what's step two? So then step two is you vote those people in. Then the question is, how do you actually mechanistically do it? Like, how do you actually reprogram the government to focus on liberty? So I have some ideas. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to quantify the touch points of when citizens are actually interacting with the government. So, like, what are all the points at which you have to interact with the government? Let's quantify that, and then let's take like legislative action to reduce the amount of times you actually even have to interact with the government. So for instance, this is a way you could do this. So if you could think of this as either tax collection or like licenses. What if your licenses, instead of only being good for like 5 years or 10 years, they were good for 20 years? So you only had to get your license once every 20 years. That means you're interacting with the government half as much. Okay, taxes. What if you only had to pay taxes? Like, what if you just paid taxes once every 2 years? Then you're only interacting with the government half as much. Okay, so then we're making legislative commitments to reduce the power of government by actually decreasing the amount of times you have to interact with the government. And that's actually going to have a positive impact on people's lives. Like, if I don't have to go to the good ideas. Yeah, see, if I don't have to go to the DMV another time, like, I'm going to vote for that dude, because that's the easiest, that's the most simple solution. Like, let's just increase the durability of people's licenses, people's driver's license. So, okay, there's a couple more ideas. So another thing you do is you just cut regulations, right? So I'm a big supporter of cutting bad regulations. You can also put expiration dates on laws. So we have all these laws. Much of our law is like written like 200 years ago, okay? And it's like the Constitution is this thing that we support and we go back to, but we have these crazy ancient laws that were legislated like 100 years ago based on like the telephone companies and the train companies. And so it's like railroad companies. And it's like, but those laws, but they're still impacting us today. So let's have an expiration date on laws where when you pass a law, maybe every 20 years it literally just expires, unless it's important enough for the Congress to renew, and then they can spend time renewing these laws. So that's another way that you can actually decrease the amount of touch points when the government is actually interacting with you. Let's put an expiration date on laws. Now it's just an idea. So I'm trying to brainstorm, how can we refocus the government on liberty, okay? There's another thing called the 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule is just kind of like a pattern that you see in nature. And it's usually, so let me apply this to government. If you were to look at the regulation, the amount of times you actually touch and interact with the government, there's probably 80% of all that interaction is probably occupied by one big thing. So like if you look for say you want to clean up your hard drive on your computer, most of that occupied space is occupied by a few tiny, really, really big files. And if you find those files, you delete them, then you got a whole bunch of extra hard drive space. Okay, same thing with government. If you want to find where you can decrease the amount of interactions, let's quantify when people interact, and let's find the biggest, the biggest, proportion of when you have to interact, and let's specifically target that, and let's slice that. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is yet. But maybe it's licenses. I don't know. But let's find out what it is, and let's just slice that in half. And then you're actually physically interacting with the government half as much. And right there, like, I'd vote for a person like that, because then they're just improving my life right there. And there's actually, like, to be honest, a senator is you're one of 100. So a senator has much less ability to actually directly impact your life than, say, like a governor, which could maybe like do something that specifically impacts you. But this is one case where a senator could, like, yes, you could do this. So that's kind of one of my ideas. Any questions? That's kind of it for today. Unless you want to talk about the Q or Area 51. All right, cheers. We can have a sip. So if you like my videos, you can follow. You can go to eaglewolfpack.com. Yeah, I'm primarying in the GOP primary for U.S. Senate. Not mayor, U.S. Senate. I'm trying to become a U.S. Senator in Alabama. That's where I'm located. So I'm primarying. Hopefully I'll win. You can follow me. If you like my videos, you can share them. Sharing is super helpful. Like, sharing just is helping me build my, thank you. Yeah, you should share this video, because that is super helpful to me. It helps me build my audience. And I just started this. I just started this Twitter account, brand new. So, like, getting to the point where it starts to exponentially grow is really, really difficult. So the shares is super helpful. Otherwise, you can go to eaglewolfpack.com. Check me out. I archive all my videos. You don't have to donate. I don't want you to donate. Don't donate at eaglewolfpack.com. I'd rather have you just go buy a beer and drink that beer. Cheers.